Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining me. My name is Cassandra and I'm going to take you through this roughly 20 minutes or so morning yoga practice. No props are required for this class and it's mostly going to be beginner friendly. There is a little section that has a bit more of a challenge to it that's a bit more intermediate level, but really I'll give you some options to make things more accessible, and I'll also give you options if you want to spice it up a little bit as well. A good mix of strength and stretch. Let's begin in a wide-legged child's pose. So you can bring your toes together to touch, widen your knees as is comfortable to you. And then we're going to lengthen out of the low back, reaching the arms out and folding down. Try to shrug your shoulders away from your ears. Let go of any tension in your neck and in your jaw. Just finding a gentle stretch through our lower back and into our hips. You might feel this a little more in your shoulders and your chest as well. These morning practices are a way for us to set the intention for the day ahead. And to really put ourselves first. So use this time to check in and see what it is that you need, what feels really good to you, and what it is that you want to focus on. We'll stay here for another 3 breaths, but see if you can come up onto your fingertips so that your elbows lift off of the mat. Stretch the arms further forward and think of almost pushing the shoulders and the armpits down. So stretching a little bit more and activating through our arms. And as you exhale, slide forward onto your belly, coming into Sphinx pose. So very gentle little back bend here, bringing your hips to the ground. Feet are about hip width distance apart or so. You can push down into your fingertips and knuckles and open up through your chest. Think of rolling your shoulders back and still pressing them away from your ears. Think of almost pushing into your toenails, into the tops of the feet, so you're keeping some engagement through your legs. And we'll transition from here into side Sphinx. So you can just roll over onto your right hip and onto that right elbow, stacking one leg over the other. And maybe you choose to stay down on your form, or it might feel good to straighten that right arm. And you can kind of let yourself sink into this one. We're just looking for a nice side bend. Reaching out long through your legs and through your heels. Let's release and just transition to the other side so you can move through Sphinx and then roll over onto your left hip and your left forearm, stacking your right leg on top, and your right hand can kind of just be in front of you to help support and keep you balanced in the pose. Very normal if one side feels a little easier than the other. Adjust however you need to. Not trying to make this too intense. One more breath here. And release back through to center. We're going to press up into tabletop pose, coming onto hands and knees for a few rounds of cat and cow. So I always like to start the morning classes with some essential spinal movements. As you inhale, drop the belly, curl tailbone up, lift up through your gaze. So like a little back bend here. And then exhale, reverse that motion as you push the floor away from you, round and contract, pull the lower belly in. And just keep going at your own pace and at your own rhythm. And even here through these poses, can you imagine pushing into the toenails, pushing into the tops of the feet so that you're taking some of the weight out of your knees? Breathing in and out through your nose. Last one here. And coming all the way back to neutral, go ahead and step your left foot out to the side and keep that foot flat to the mat so it's roughly in line with your hip. And we'll thread the needle from here. So your right arm will reach underneath you, shoulder and ear come down to the mat, and then you can extend your left arm up overhead. So a big spinal rotation, also starting to stretch down into our left leg. No tension in your neck here in the pose. Sliding your left hand back in, push into the floor to come up and lift your chest all the way so we can find our gate pose from here. So we're going to slide left hand down the left leg and reach your right arm up and over, big side body stretch. Think of rolling your right shoulder back so you're not leaning forward. And find the counter stretch by bringing your right hand down to the ground. Left arm reaches up and over. And back to our tabletop pose. We'll find those 3 poses over on the second side. So bring that left knee in, and this time your right leg and right foot step out. So off of your mat. Make sure that you have your ankle in line with your knee and in line with your hip. Left arm threads underneath you, shoulder and ear come down to the ground. Big twist as you extend your right arm up and over. I'm pushing into the floor with my left arm and a little bit with my right fingertips as well. Try not to roll to the inside edge of your right foot. Imagine you can push down into your baby toe. So really grounded through all 4 limbs. Right hand slides back in, push into the floor, lift up all the way. So lifting the chest, shoulders over your hips, gate pose, left arm extends up and over, big side body stretch, pull the lower belly in, relax your head. Stretching to the other side, left hand comes down to the floor, right arm extends up and overhead. Rolling the right hand down, tabletop pose, and let's find our first downward facing dog. So you can walk your hands a couple inches past the shoulders, tuck the toes under, and go ahead and lift your hips up and back. And I'm just paddling the feet and the legs here. So alternating, bending one leg and straightening the other one. Whatever feels good for you this morning. Trying to get rid of any stiffness from the night. Relax your head. Think of pushing your chest towards your thighs a little more, curling tailbone up to the sky. And quiet your downward facing dog. We're going to reach that right leg up towards the sky. Bend your knee, open up your hip, get a big thigh stretch here, and find your low lunge. So right foot steps to the top of the mat. Back knee comes down to the floor, and we're going to lift up. I'm going to bring my hands kind of just on the thigh here, lengthen the tailbone down, and then move forward into your lunge, keeping the chest lifted. So what we don't want is to overarch into our lower back. The more you can feel your tailbone lengthen down and your lower belly engage, the deeper you'll feel this through your left thigh. Take one more big breath here. And try to maintain your balance. So moving into a bit of a trickier sequence here, we're going to straighten that right leg and fold forward. I'm not actually pushing down on my leg. See if you can even maybe hover it off. So there's almost no pressure in my hand. We're flexing that right foot, hinging at the hips, really stretching through the hamstrings. And coming back into this lunge, we're going to interlace our hands behind the lower back. We're coming from here into humble warrior. So roll your shoulders away from your ears, broaden through your chest. You're going to tuck the back toes under, lift the back knee off the mat, and maybe you choose to hold here if this is already enough, or you're going to dive down to the inside of that right thigh. So if this is too much, your hands can stay down on the mat, or you can stay up in your high lunge. We're not here forever, really strengthening through those glutes and quads. Push your feet into the floor to come all the way up. And another challenge here, we're coming into warrior 3, maintain the arms in this clasp. So we're balancing on that right leg, left leg extends back. Try to keep your hips parallel to the floor. And keep rolling the head of the arm bones back, so shoulders away from the ground. Squeeze your shoulder blades behind you. Into mountain pose, Tadasana. Release the arms, palms shine forward. Take a moment here. And let's take a little flow. Inhale, arms rise. Fold forward, exhale. You can absolutely bend your knees here. Halfway lift, flat back, lengthen out. And then plant the hands, step the feet back to plank, and carefully lower all the way down to your belly. Bhujangasana, your cobra pose. Open through your heart. Downward facing dog. Lifting your hips up. Setting ourselves up for the second side. Find the stability in your downward dog. Go ahead and lift your left leg up to the sky. Bend your knee, open up your hip. Big thigh stretch. And coming into our low lunge. So the left foot steps forward. The back knee comes down to the mat. And lifting on up. So bringing your hands over on your thigh. Think of lengthening tailbone down. Drawing your lower belly in. And then pressing the hips forward. So we're trying to keep our shoulders over our hips. Transitioning from here into Ardha Hanumanasana, our half splits pose. You're going to straighten that left leg, hinging at the hips, keeping a flat back. And again, I'm not pushing down on my left thigh. We're trying to be really careful with our knee here. I'm just keeping my hands there to help with balance. If you need the extra support, then the hands can definitely come down to the floor. Think of pushing down into that left heel and almost dragging it back. Coming back into our lunge, we're going to interlace the hands the more unusual way. So you have your other thumb on top, roll the shoulders back, lift the knuckles off of your tailbone before lifting up into your high lunge, either holding here or diving down, humble warrior. So with humble warrior, I'm trying to lift my arms and my knuckles up and overhead. I'm pushing down firmly into both legs, both feet. Carefully coming back up. We're transitioning from here into our Virabhadrasana 3, Warrior 3. Keep the arms as they are as you stand on that left leg. The right leg stretches up and back. Try to straighten at the back of that right knee. Deep breath here. Mountain pose at the top of the mat. Roll your shoulders back. Close your eyes. Take a moment here. And let's take a little flow. Inhale, arms rise. Exhale, fold down. Halfway lift, flat back. Plant the palms into plank, and we lower down either all the way or halfway. I'm just going to go all the way down, sticking with cobra pose this morning. Downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. And let's come into pigeon pose from here. So you can extend your right leg up to the sky, just create some space in that hip joint. And then you're gonna bring that right knee behind your right wrist. Extend that left leg further out, level out through your hips so you're not leaning on one side more than the other. And maybe you wanna stay up nice and high, working on a little back bend, or you can fold down. You don't need to go all the way. You can stay up on your forearms. Really just find the variation of the pose that feels best suited to you this morning. Try to relax a little more into it. 5 breaths here. And if you had folded all the way down, push into the ground, slowly rise back up. And we'll come back to downward dog so we can find the same pose on the other side. Take your time here. Whatever little movements feel good. Feeling the effects of that pigeon pose. And we'll go to the left. So left leg rises up. And then gently place that left knee somewhere behind that left wrist. Don't worry about making a 90-degree angle with that left knee. It's perfectly fine if you have your left heel pretty close in towards your seat. And maybe you're working the pose up high into a back bend, or you're folding down. And you can start to ask yourself what kind of intention you'd like to set for the day ahead. Maybe just choosing a word or a feeling. See if you can relax your hips a little more. And we'll slowly lift up and out. This will be our last downward facing dog. So really make the most of this pose, stretching through the back of your legs, elongating along the spine through your arms. And I don't really do Shavasana when I do morning yoga classes. So instead we'll just come to take a seat. Taking a few breaths here. So sit in any way that is comfortable for your hips and for your lower back. Shrug your shoulders away from your ears. Closing your eyes. And just taking this time to notice how you feel right now. Showing yourself a bit of gratitude for carving the time out of your morning to get on your mat and do something for yourself. You might settle on a one-word intention. Hands come together at the front of the heart. Let's close by chanting Om one time. Inhale to chant, breathe in deep. Thank you so much, everyone, for doing this morning yoga practice with me. I would love to know how this felt for you. And if you have an intention for the day, of course, you can share it down below in the comments. Please do subscribe, and I'll also link to all my other morning yoga classes that I have. I have hundreds and hundreds of them, so if you wanted to make this a daily habit, you can certainly do so. Thank you again, and maybe I'll see you again tomorrow morning.